seen it before, I sort of didn't know it was new.
I mean,
If that
new
makes
as in it,
sense. It's like,
it hasn't topped a stream before. But yes, I have shown it
yeah,
off before. But no, not a single
yeah,
person.
I think
20
that's
people in the chat, not one person's even mentioned it. It's despicable, isn't it? I go to all that
just
effort.
Typical
sticking to
chat,
it.
really.
Yeah, typical of
Yeah,
chat,
Ignorant.
exactly. Ignorant. Philistines. It's pearls before swine. Right, I'm about to turn the mics on, so beware of that.
Oh, this means we have to install chat even more.
Yeah, I know. Good evening, everybody. As you can tell from the spanking new wonderful logo adorning the very front of this screen, One World, One Blood Bowl is back. Hello! As you can see, I've briefly leapt onto a purple planet. When it annoys me in about 3 or 4 seconds, we'll go back to just a blurred background. This isn't staying, there's too much clipping. We do have the new logo. We did that to celebrate nearing the 50 editions of One World, One Blood Bowl. But then my life went completely crazy. So I disappeared 6 months ago. If you didn't hear why, I am, when I'm not playing Blood Bowl, I actually have a real life. And in my real life, I got a job. And that job was going to consume an enormous amount of my time and effort for months and months. And so it has proved to be. I'm a jobbing actor, and I got a job that meant I was going to be doing a job on a play, but also understudying a huge role within that play, which meant I was not only rehearsing all day, learning my bits and how I was going to be doing all sorts of bits in the background of a very long play, but also then at night having to spend loads of time with the script, just working privately, making sure that I was also ready, by the time we opened, to go on and do two of the other large roles in the play. So it's taken an enormous amount of my time and focus. I really haven't touched Blood Bowl much since the turn of 2024. I completed what leagues I had to in the Super League on Fumble. I played most of my games out. There was a couple I really couldn't find the time to do, but I played the season out. And that's been about it. I've dipped a toe into Blood Bowl 3, played 1 or 2 games maybe there. I've kept up in terms of, I've stayed on some of the Discords. I've kept reading stuff that's been happening. I'm not completely unaware. I do know Gnomes have sprung into existence. That's all I know about them. So I want to come back. Now, partly because I have made some commitments. I am going to have to play some Blood Bowl, whether I want to or not. So yeah, I'm coming back and I'm playing some Blood Bowl on tabletop. In a month's time, I'm going to be taking part in the Home Nations event, where I agreed to captain the Barbarians team, which is a scratch team of people from all over the globe come together to take on the nations of England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and the mighty powerhouse of Malta, well known for its presence in the British Isles. So the home nations are going to take on the barbarians for the right to brag, and also as a sort of warm up for the Euro Bowl. As part of that, I started talking to the Euro Bowl people about the rule sets and things, and they asked if I wanted to go on a team in case they had an odd number of nations, and they needed to put together like a barbarian team. So I said, haha, why not? And then it turns out they didn't need that. But they offered me a place on a European team of 4, so I'm also going to go to Athens and play in the European. Having been working for the first half of this year, I feel I can afford that. So I've got some Blood Bowl coming up, and I'm completely out of the loop. I know nothing about Blood Bowl. I am lost in a world that once I knew, like a child returning to their hometown, only to finding that Tory cuts and bad government has meant it's now just a wasteland with JD Sports and feral teenagers roaming the streets. So I feel very lost, just as Colin is by those very English cultural references I've dropped. Think Chicago. It's just somewhere that the world has moved by. I don't know where Blood Bowl is. I've made some commitments to play them in some quite high profile places. What races should I be picking? Should I be taking Gnomes? And also, what's going on with my beloved Fumble? So I've asked on some of my friends from the world of Blood Bowl, most of whom are active on Fumble or just in the Blood Bowl world, or at least last I knew. And that's what I plan to ask them. So I said hello, Colin. Bazakastine, how is the world of America? How's you? And how's your Blood Bowl?
Hey, I mean, things are going reasonably well, I guess. Blood Bowl's been okay. Playing some tabletop, not as much as last year. Just been a lot more busy. Got my leagues on Fumble, tournaments. A lot of tournaments been running, so it's been fun. It's been good.
Now, are you still running the majors on Fumble? Are they clicking along?
I am. I am. There's one going on right now. We have the last Steel Gauntlet just finished, and right now the main draw of the Grotty Little tournament will be on Wednesday.
Steel Gauntlet. What's that?
Yeah, so now with Trophy, the best finish of each race plus a couple wild cards go into a 32 team tournament at the end, which is nice and fun. It's, you can only play 15 games, so all the teams have coming out of the same environment, a little bit different than the traditional majors where some people may have, been abusing the new rules a bit to make super teams. But they've been fun. They've been running well. We have a lot of diversity in the teams that have done well in the Steel Gauntlet, which has been good to see considering.
So this is after the Black Box tournament, which obviously is what runs about every 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months long. 60 games split over 4 teams. So plenty of time to play. Try to see if you can get something in.
And it's so the teams that qualify for this major are the ones that have won their racial leads in that incredibly competitive environment anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Now sometimes it falls down the list because people do well with multiple teams, shockingly enough. But
I don't know
yeah,
who
it ends
you'd
up.
mean. Who would have faced choices as to what races they could take?
I don't know. There's someone here who I'm pretty sure does.
So the likes of Elyod and Malmir, we're talking, the creme de la creme will pick from between 5 races. So it might be if you've second or third Underworld or Goblins or whatever, you might still sneak in.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've gone as low as like seventh. So
Okay, but you're going to have done well with a race in that environment to get into this Steel Gauntlet, and that's like a major for those people. Excellent. So
yeah,
even more
yeah.
competitive Blood Bowl. And as you
It's one
said, with
that
that capped, everyone's done those 15 games to get in. So that's interesting. What sort of
yeah.
races have been dominating that?
Actually, so out of the 3 we've had so far, I think we've had 11 unique semifinalists.
Cool.
So it's been, everyone's been different teams that have gone far. The first one we had Elyod win with Underworld. The second one I won with Vampires. And then the third one was just won by Chaos Dwarves, coached by Malarian, which that is his first tournament win on Fumble. So that's really cool to
Wow.
see.
Excellent. Always nice to see a new face coming up and making waves.
Yeah, yeah.
Let them come. What we don't need is crusty old people clinging on and winning things forevermore. That's the death of any game environment. Excellent. So the new one's just kicked off. What's going on right now with you and tournaments and Fumble?
Groggy Little tournament we're finishing up the qualifiers, so that will start soon. XFLs, we have Dwarfs, Goblins, Kimry, and Skaven that start on the 5th. So you have a few days to apply to that. If you haven't sent it, you have to send one of those races. And then I will be opening up applications for the next minor on Wednesday, and that would kick off on June 19th.
So minors have a cap on them, don't they? So it can be anything under whatever you set the level at. Or...
Yeah, and I'm not sure what this one's going to be yet. I'd have to go and look at what the last ones have been. But I think this one's going to be small, probably. I think this one's going to be the 1,300 TV range. It's adjusted a little bit, so you can't just park a team right at 1,300 and know they're going to get in. Yeah, so those will be starting soon. And yeah, there is a full tournament schedule in my blog that I posted in January. So if you're curious when any of the ones that don't start every week are, that's going on.
But there continues to be, weekly entry stuff as well, doesn't there? Which is sort of teams of 8 and things.
Yeah, we have the Royal Rookie Rumble. So fresh team, start a new team, no games, 16 team tournaments. And then we have Brawls, which are 8-team tournaments that, various TV ranges. So you can apply as many teams as you want. And whenever one kicks off, it starts. And we have a good tournament admin team helping me out with all that.
And are those pretty active now? I mean, how is the Fumble numbers?
They seem pretty active. I mean, we've gotten a decent amount. I mean, I'm mainly paying attention like the majors. We have a decent amount of applications there, especially during the Euro time zone. It seems pretty easy to get games through Black Box or Game Finder. The North American is still definitely league dominated, but that's how it's been for a long time.
And what's you said you've been doing less tabletop because last year was perhaps the year where some of the evil seeds I had sown out into the Blood Bowl 3 community and Fumble really
Yeah.
blossomed into a sort of burgeoning tabletop community, particularly seemingly in North America, with Run
Yeah,
Band
it's been
dominating up in Canada and you and Sol in America, perhaps.
yeah. There's actually the Immortal Cup's happening in Canada right now, but I could not justify going. I was at a tournament in Manchester in February at Water Bowl,
Yeah,
which you're very aware of because I may have seen you in London
we did. We
afterwards.
went
That
out
was
for a
a lot of
drink in London. Yeah,
yeah. That did eat up a decent amount of my Blood Bowl travel budget for the year, but no, I mean I've just been busy like work and too many of my friends getting married in places I have to fly to.
right.
So, but it's been fun. There's still plenty of tournaments here local. I'm going to be at Chaos Cup in November, which it looks like it's going to be once again the biggest it's ever been.
Now, I'm going to ask this to all three of you, and then we'll get a little more general afterwards. But while we're doing one-on-ones, the first thing I've got coming up is this Barbarians event, which you were invited to be a Barbarian. You said you'd spent all your money on a lesser tournament and made that mistake, so unfortunately you had to turn me down. Originally, because literally all 8 of us didn't want to play Underworld. I felt as the captain I would have to play Underworld so that we had them on the roster. And now, of course, finally, the nerf I've been asking for since Underworld were released, that, okay, all of that's fine, but they shouldn't be able to have swarming. That's come through. And hurrah for it. I think that's going to make for a better game of Blood Bowl. But now in a month's time, I may be coaching Underworld. Is that a mistake? Should I swap to a different race? What's hot in your mind right now, Baza?
Well, I mean, I haven't played them, but I imagine, especially in tabletop, they should still be fine, right? Like you still get a lot with them. They're definitely going to be a little bit worse than they were, but I still think they'll be a pretty decent team overall.
You know how, I don't know if you've done any gardening, I was forced to do some earlier by my partner. You know how no matter how much you hurt ivy, it just always comes back? Oh, what makes me think of that? Dimmy G's in the chat, by the way. He says knobs up. Is he right? Should I be swapping in my Underworld and taking some nobility? Is that...
I mean, yeah, like I stopped playing nobility because they're just too easy to win with.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I need something that's a bit more of a challenge, maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends what you want there.
Elyod, hello. It's been a long, long time. You've been back streaming, which is lovely. How are you? How's your Blood Bowl?
Good evening, PC. Thanks for the invite. As always, lovely to be here. Hope you're doing well as well.
My life is
very
great,
cool to
thank
see
you.
you doing the acting and stuff. So yeah, how's the Blood Bowl? So up until this point this year, yeah, pretty good. Bazza touched on when you and Bazza touched on the tournament schedule on Fumble this year, which has been really cool to see. Like having the whole year sort of planned out with all the majors and minors. Probably the first year that I played on Fumble where we've had the whole big schedule, which is cool. And sort of to add on to top of that, we've had Dionysian or Spence, or goes by many different names these days in the community, has his Player of the Year meta competition. So this is for those who are unaware. Dionysian, he likes his tournaments, but he in the
does.
past he ran a very interesting knockout tournament that I think Bazza participated in as well. It's called Dome, very high intensity, lots of Blood Bowl, on
I
a
went to
single
the Dome.
day. You as well, PC. Sorry, yeah, of course. So yeah, two in the call. But he wasn't so bothered about doing something like that this year. Instead, he's gone for this meta tournament where you pick up points for going deep in majors and minors across the entire year, and then at the end of the year, the player who's got the most points, it's weighted quite heavily towards winning. Right, the points ramp up quite heavily towards the end of the tournaments.
Yeah, he's not all about just come along and take part, is he?
Oh yes.
When it comes to Spence, he's all about the win. He likes his money shots.
He does indeed. He really does. So yeah, that's added an extra layer of excitement. So for me, yeah, the tournament scene was already like as good as it gets in Fumble. Like obviously I played a lot in Blood Bowl 2, and Fumble's Black Box Trophy is kind of like the ultimate refinement of the Blood Bowl 2 system in a way, which was already pretty good, I thought, and Black Box Trophy is really great. So a lot to be excited about tournament wise for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's here to knock the Blood Bowl 2 system, but I think you're right. Black Box Trophy said, okay, hold my beer. We can take that and we can put an even more competitive spin on it. Which is why,
Absolutely.
famously, one of the first questions I asked when I arrived on Blood Bowl 2 was, so what? You can play as many as you want. That just wasn't something I could really comprehend. And the endless restarts again. It took me a while to adjust to that. And Fumble's take on that is no, no. This is a bit more high stakes maybe. What about the tabletop world? Has that been something you've dipped your toe into again, or are you tempted?
Uh, yes, yes, and no. I've not been to any this year. The last one was last year. My second tournament I went to. I did have well, I have a confession to make. I had two invitations to go to tabletop tournaments this year, and I declined the first one, and the second one I accepted. So I'm actually off to well. I accepted like 2 days ago. Who knows? I may change my
Okay.
mind. But I'm off to UKTC in August.
Oh,
Is the
lovely.
plan? All being well. With Dimmy and Hangok and Dulligar. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it will be on my first one in a while. So pretty. I mean, my first team tournament as
Fantastic.
well.
Nice. A
So
very
pretty happy
strong
about
team
that.
to be part of.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And a
In it to win it.
great competition. I mean, I think the best competition, but also I would suggest, I've always said the strongest field, and then particularly Purple Goo always shoots that down and says, no, the strongest field is a 14-man tournament in some back alley in St Albans where half the England team turn up to practice. Now,
Sure.
he's maybe got a point, but in terms of just the quality right through the draw, I think the UKTC is very hard to beat. And it's super good fun as well. It's an absolute legend. It's a shame it's one I can't do this year. I'm going to be in Zanzibar, which
Oh,
I love saying. Yeah, we're going to Zanzibar, and it
yeah,
just
very nice.
happens to be booked at the same time. Yes, Zanzibar happens to be booked at the same time as the UKTC. So perhaps I'll adjust my life calendar next year back for it. Now, hopefully, in its new settled home in the summer, because it's bounced around a bit in the last few years. I think you'll have a great time doing that. Now, I did mention the gnomes. Someone told me you've been well into the gnomes. Should we talk about that when we get the others back in? But certainly that's somewhere I want to go with you. This isn't a vicious rumour. You've been nodding and smiling when I say it. You genuinely are thinking that's something that tease me. Why should I care about
What?
Nate?
Why should you care about them?
Yeah.
Well, they're a problem, aren't they? I mean, it's funny that we've just seen Underworld get knocked down a bit, which is absolutely fair. But it's almost like why bother now? Gnomes are here. They're the new problem.
And goblins, of course. The unloved of the stunties with their
I mean,
30
they
odd
feel
percent.
even worse now, don't they?
Are gnomes coming in
Poor old
above them? Have
goblins.
they brought in something else above the goblins again?
I mean, at the other end
Tough.
of the list to the goblins. Never mind above them. The antithesis of goblins.
Now, another good friend I brought on this evening, I love him to pieces, an old friend of mine, Neil Watt. Hello, Neil.
Hey guys, how you doing?
From the
I was
chill.
just gonna say, when you're talking about teams, it would have been hard to design one that's gonna like drop down below goblins. Like you'd have to really work at it.
You'd have to
Like,
think, how could these be just utterly terrible?
yeah, yeah. Sort of
Yeah.
like okay, you're allowed like 5 trolls on a team. That's it. That's all you're allowed.
How are you and how's your Blood Bowl? Now, of course, there's a lot going on for you. You are one of the NAF representatives of Fumble, or on Fumble, last I heard, so let's talk a bit about that. You're very involved on the
Yeah.
South Coast, so
hmm
obviously mainly dodging old people as they fall down dead, but occasionally, I'm sure, playing Blood Bowl. There's a thriving scene. The Blood Bowl Southeast server is kicking off all over the place. So, how much of that have you been getting done this year?
So personally, I haven't been that like massively involved. I've like moved house, bits and pieces like that. So
Great,
just
thanks
sort
for
of
coming
getting
on.
back to yeah, that's all right. And that's it. Basically, that's it. Done. But yeah, like overall, like I haven't been playing that much, but still being involved in like running the online like NAF tournaments on Fumble. We've got 2 new staffers now. So we've got Valen is he's sort of focusing on more like 1 day events on Fumble. We've got Nightbird who's opening it up more for North America. So because sometimes if we're trying to like plan events for North America, like knowing exactly what time zone to set things in is quite tricky. Like, a few hours difference could make a big difference. So with that, he's managed to really push for it, and they had their first squad tournament in on Fumble in a long, long time. I don't know if they've had one in North America before. They probably have, but yeah, they've got 13 squads going in America
Oh,
or in the North, like North American time zone. So there was the guys from Australia and stuff there as well. But yeah, it was really good for that to get moving.
That's very solid for the
Um,
North Americans. That's pretty good.
yeah. We were expecting maybe 8 squads, and we thought we might have to do a thing where each squad plays each other squad once. But yeah, when we got 13, that was definitely better. So we will be repeating another squad tournament of North America probably September. Um, we'll be doing a singles event coming up which supports FRUD. That'll be starting in a couple of weeks, which is like a really good event in the UK if anyone's ever been there. Probably one of the friendliest sort of events
Yeah,
that's going.
I, I didn't mention that. I think I was quite drunk. I've got tickets for Thrud this year,
Uh, nice, good stuff.
and I've promised to camp.
Oh wow. Oh, you're really
Yeah,
going all out.
I'm a bit worried. I mean, I'm quite an old man, and I ache. And I mean, it's a tent. I've got to put a tent up and sleep in it. So I'm a bit worried about all of that. The Blood Bowl doesn't worry me at all. I think the Blood Bowl is going to be great at Thrud, but my partner's not entirely convinced I'm coming back alive. So I'll take a car, and obviously you can just quickly run off and stay in a travel lodge, can't you, if it's all going horribly wrong? But
Yeah, there are like a lot of people stay around the corner, a lot of people camp. Um, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not making it this year, but
I
it
thought I'd give it a
is.
go anyway.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'll take a lot of whiskey, but that's counterindicated with the car escape plan, isn't it? So it might be.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
You need a camper van that'll sort you out.
I may have made a huge mistake. Great. So
Yeah,
there's and the south coast. I said there's a lot going on down there, isn't there?
that's
You ran a
that's
tournament, didn't you?
amazing.
Is that something you're going to repeat?
Yeah. It's repeated already. Well, it's set up to be repeated. Tickets are on sale. So basically, when was it? That was November. We had a paired event down in Brighton. So like two coaches pairing up. We got, I want to say there was 48 coaches, and we've opened it up 7th of September.
Now, as I
I want to
recall, didn't
say.
didn't someone quite sort of ritzy and quite sort of top tier in the world of Blood Bowl end up winning
Yeah,
that?
yeah, Thulian, that's the one. And then he had some other guy sort of holding his drinks, basically,
Yeah, yeah,
something like
fair
that.
point. Yeah, that was me, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so Thulian did
Yeah,
great, absolutely aced it, and carried me all the way to the finish line as his not dragging him down too far partner. It
yeah.
was
Well,
a, it
you
was a
two,
really nice event. I have to say, it was a really good venue on the south coast, and it's really nice to see the south
yeah,
coast putting in some not only just some good quality events in great venues, but getting some proper numbers in as well. I mean, the Midlands of
yeah.
the
It was.
North have always been absolute heartlands of Blood Bowl. The Bonehead podcast done a fabulous job with the Southwest. There's a series down there. They get some great numbers, running some fabulous, competitions down there. The Midlands, as well as obviously the traditional wife swapping, has got always had some solid Blood Bowl. Scotland is kicking off. Ireland's got a great circuit going now, and the southeast really, and even London, you've sort of felt a bit
Mm,
underdeveloped in terms of the Blood Bowl. We did have that 1 year of the Blood Bowl London series, and then of course COVID's knocked that on the head.
mhm.
But the southeast and London do seem to be really, coming big for Blood Bowl right now. I put it largely down to Dimmy G. I think his efforts have really united that community.
People wanting to beat him against him.
Yeah, just having a
Yeah,
clown around that's a nice easy win. I think for most people just cheers them up, doesn't it?
yeah. I advertise that on the event generally. Put it a little block at the bottom.
Yeah,
Um,
Dimmy in the chat has pointed out actually it's a lot of it's down to Stu Backer, the new
mhm.
NAF regional admin down in the southeast, doing a cracking job there, really putting the effort in and really getting people involved. But Blood Bowl North America's been thriving as well, hasn't it, Basil?
Yeah, no, it definitely has. Lots of events going on all the time. I mean, there's one within driving distance of me fairly regularly. We're actually having it's only a two-person team tournament. We're doing a team tournament in Dallas in August, so that's going to be fun. Because we don't have any of those.
Mm.
Um, I did like the online team tournament that Neil was talking about. I was one of the people who took part of it, and it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. I mean, America, do you think it's because it's such a spread out place that these people don't tend to go, oh, we'll take a team from this club and that club, and I mean, to get them together
Yeah,
for all of that would be a huge job, wouldn't it?
yeah, it's a little it's tough. Like, I mean, I obviously know tournaments in the Texas area, and I know of them elsewhere sometimes, but I don't often know what's going on. But there have been some. I know there was one in New Orleans in March. That was also a team tournament. So that does seem to be something people are trying to do more of now. We have just more people playing, so it's just more doable than it would have been a few years ago.
Of course, we still don't have a venue for the next World Cup, or at least not that I've heard about. So perhaps there's some sense that America could be a bit more competitive in the tournaments before maybe hosting one. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Chaos Cup last year was in Orlando. They're doing it again this year. Really well run. They did a great job. It looks like it's going to be. I mean, there was 200 people last year. I think this year's going to be 250 is what they have space for, and it's probably going to sell out again. So it's definitely more people are playing, which is a big help because the record before 2023, I think, was 112.
Right.
So getting to 250 within just a couple of years growth is a lot.
Yeah, it's incredible. And of course, the more logistics you've got the experience of running, the more prepared you are to say, okay, we'll push the boat out and see if we can get even more involved.
Yeah.
It's certainly very big numbers. Now, I did want to talk about gnomes because obviously that's one of the big exciting things that's going off at the moment. Everyone's talking about them, and the place you can play them, of course, because it responds within hours, seconds, milliseconds sometimes from the official release of anything on Blood Bowl, is of course our beloved Fumble. So the gnomes are up and running, I presume, within a day or so of being officially released. Is that lots of nods? Who
I
hasn't?
think it was the day they were officially released. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Blood Bowl 3, I know, has a couple of new races, but if you're waiting for gnomes, I wouldn't hold your breath. And even, of course, on tabletop, your local league might have included gnomes, but it's a while maybe until you get to either face them or play them. Even tournaments. Some tournaments are not going to let gnomes in because they'd already picked their rule sets and what tiers everything was going to be. So it might be a while till we see a lot of gnomes. If you want to face gnomes, if you want to play gnomes, if you see yourself and your inner spirit animal as a gnome, then probably Fumble is the place to be. I see a big, warm smile all over Elyod's face. Are you identifying yourself now as a gnome? Are you going to come out and say, I am no longer just a man? My inner gnome speaks to me.
Yeah, I've certainly been self-identifying as a gnome for quite a while. I have to say, PC. It's great to have the chance to finally express myself on the Blood Bowl pitch in such a way.
Are you it? Are you the person that was waiting for Blood Bowl to finally have gnomes?
Probably, yeah. It's kind of wild. I had absolutely no idea that Blood Bowl had any kind of history with gnomes, or that it would ever be a thing in Blood Bowl. And I don't think that many people were expecting gnomes to be a thing, right? And then all of a sudden, here we have gnomes. What the hell?
I'd have guessed for what? Clan Vermin, maybe having their own team, or Slayer Dwarves, another thing that's very unique to Games Workshop, maybe having their own team. I'd have said possibly even Furmir, somewhat of a deep cut from the Games Workshop world, but people could talk about that. As Dimmy's just said in the chat, actually, we don't have a Slanesh yet. We don't have a Tzeentch. I don't know how you say that, but I've always gone Tzeentch. So there's all sorts of ways. There's elementals. That's been an idea thrown around a lot in Secret League. It's used a lot in Games Workshop. They're not in Blood Bowl. There's all sorts of ways they thought they might go. And we got gnomes. And then we thought, coming, some of this is going to be exciting. And then we saw the lineup. I'm not. I have to say I wasn't excited. The foxes, I thought, obviously anything that's dog-like is a good boy and should only get love and praise. But then we've got geese, we got badgers. I mean, do I now, as well as a Blood Bowl set, have to buy a My Starter farm just so I can play Blood Bowl? Where are we going with this? And just how shit a gnome's going to be when they're stunties that start without dodge? Surely they're just going to die, like, by turn 3. Am I wrong? Let's bring in someone that isn't as biased as Elyod obviously is, someone that doesn't instantly love them. Bazza, his irony is so deep that I'm being slightly dragged into thinking maybe there's something about gnomes I'm not seeing. They're complete shit, aren't they?
Well, I've played 0 games with them and 0 games against them, so
Great.
I'm obviously an expert. I've watched some of Elyod's games. I've watched some of Gdanik's games. I watched Happy Group play a game with him. I think they're really interesting. I think they have a lot of little tricks that
Those
I
are
think.
3 proper coaches, by the way. For anyone that doesn't know, Gdanik is the man from Australia who cheats by only playing North Americans and gets incredibly high win rates that way. Lovely guy, very strange mind, very, very good at the Blood Bowl. Happy Grew, North American, but incredibly good at Blood Bowl. So if you can hold those 2 things in your head, then that basically explains Happy Grew. So that's 3 proper players have all chosen, even Elyod, have all chosen to play Gnomes. I mean, wow.
Yeah, they're definitely all guys who, the weirdness of the team, the little tricks they can do. There, people are going to figure it out. I do want to try to play them. I'm interested. I think that having a stunty that plays so differently than the other ones is kind of cool. I do kind of like that there's one that's not based around dodge. And I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in how they go.
What interests me about them is if people are playing them on Fumble and enjoying them or getting use out of them, then my goodness, what's going to happen when they can take them to a tournament? Because they can drop dodge onto them as a normal. And stunties tend to get quite a lot of those if they want them. So is that going to make them genuinely fearsome when those sorts of things happen? And what about this idea of starting with guard even?
Yeah, I had a little look at them the other day, and I did think, yeah, if you took them to a tournament, and often with like a stunty team, you might get 8 basic skills and just spammed a load of dodge onto them. They could be really awkward because they've all got wrestle. You chuck on their dodge, so if you hit them or they're hitting you, they've got, they're going to be sticking around. They've also got jump up, so even if you knock them down, you haven't slowed them down. So they could be really
You haven't
awkward to
slowed them
play.
down, but they're incredibly slow. So you've kept them
Yeah,
as terribly slow as they are.
like halflings are really slow. Where these guys, it's like I don't know. I think they still might just have that issue of stunty teams that they just get wiped off the team. There's only 11 of them on the pitch, a couple of tree men. I think they've still got that issue. But yeah, I did wonder how they'd phase if you're holding like chuck like 8 dodge onto the team, you know, block on the trees or whatever, something on those lines. They could be, yeah, they could definitely be really awkward to play against. That's sort of what they look like. They look like an awkward team to play against.
Are they the imperial nobility of stunties? Are they just,
Hmm.
they'll stop you dead and you'll make no progress and you'll just be frustrated and in the end you'll just, I don't know,
About
Very offensive comparison, in my
kill them.
opinion.
Right, let's let him in. Elyod, and we none of us see it. Baza hasn't been tempted. Yes, some big names have tried them with you, but even Neil's saying, maybe once we've got skills on them. I'm just seeing instant death by turn 3. Why are you, someone known, yes, for playing all the races, but also, frankly, as a little munchkin that does like to win? Why haven't you given up the gnomes yet?
um, Well, I guess so. So yeah, the gnomes are kind of terrible. It's true. It's true. But I guess what you have to do is think of it more of a fox team, right? The gnomes are just a delivery mechanism for the foxes, I guess.
Okay.
The foxes are so ridiculously good, right? I mean, it, if you look at what they are for the price, it's just insane. But you can even forget about the price. But 50K for the move 7 dodge sidestep edge 2+. When I saw the initial release before he had the stat lines and that kind of thing, I assumed foxes. I thought foxes would probably be movement 7 or something like that. And edge 3+ titchy, like fast snotlings or something like that. But having edge 2+ is just completely wild.
Yeah.
How do you stop them? They go whatever they want. They do whatever they want to do.
And
So yeah,
I was
crazy
thinking,
player.
strength 1. I mean, it's an animal,
Yes, same.
but they're strength 2.
Yeah. I still, when I'm playing them, I still occasionally think they're strength 1. And I'll be like, oh wait, my opponent doesn't have a 2D on the ball, or they don't have a 1D on the ball. It's an upfall. I forgot that they're actually strength 2. He's completely wild. Yeah, that foxes are stronger than I don't know, snotlings and that kind of thing.
But everything must have its own special rule now, so the fox isn't allowed to give the ball away, is it?
It's not, no, and honestly,
Huge nerf.
Yeah, clearly, somebody who made the team thinks that, I guess, because maybe that's why the pricing of the Foxes is why it is, and why the team as a whole is so powerful. But it's not that much of a nerf, right? It's pretty. It can be pretty big in that a lot of the gameplay of the team for me revolves around the one turn, right? Gnomes aren't very good at stopping offenses. They're kind of built as a sacking team, right? They have the 3+ dodging with the guards. They've got the wrestle. It seems to me like whoever designed them thought, hey, stunnies that can stack the ball, which is kind of cool. But you do that, and then like you say, all your gnomes are dead before you know it. So to me, it usually comes down to fouling some people, hitting them with the trees, and doing a one turn with the foxes, right? And that is where the no ball does hurt a little bit, because you can't hand off from one fox to the other.
Right.
But yeah, otherwise not a massive issue.
So you need to still fetch and get it to the fox that's going to try and do the one turning, and that's a bit of a limit.
It is, and that's where the illusionist comes in actually, because I was surprised. I thought the illusionist was complete trash, but A, it does have 3+ passing and passing access if you'd like to take some ridiculous passing scores on it, and B, the illusionist the trickster ability that they have is actually hilarious. Not very useful most of the time, but has potential for extreme levels of comedy. So yeah, very pleased with the tricksters. Yeah.
So what? I mean, because don't they have to be hit to use it, or to have hit someone, or?
Yeah, when they get hit, when they get blocked, you can position them between taking the block and rolling the block dice in any square adjacent to the blocker.
And then they'll get pushed back from there.
Exactly, yeah. So you could occasionally do some pretty cool things with it. Mostly they just die in the square you're choosing.
Yes,
But,
mostly you're choosing
sometimes not.
where they die.
Exactly.
Where do you want your blood splotch to be?
Yeah, it can make some nice, pretty patterns on the pitch.
But suddenly, in case of that critical fail, that 1 in 9 where they don't get that power or something, maybe there's now suddenly a huge problem. And of course, for the tabletop world, because we should always try and refer out and across, you get access to a couple of illusionists, do you?
Two illusionists, yeah.
So you've perhaps got one for a leader caddy, and maybe one you could put, say, pass on if you need to move the ball up to a fox.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
That does sound quite interesting. And again, those would be two normal takes, because they get passing access, which has also recently been given back to, or given to, Goblin Bombers. So after the 38 nerfs in a row, Goblins finally get one tiny, almost insignificant buff. Hurrah! I'm sure they will now easily get to 40, maybe, no, 34% win rate, maybe. So yeah, gnomes. What about the badgers and the geese? Are they the same? Do we need them? Is a strength 7 stunty dodgeless card really? Do you really want to put that in my face and let my dwarf or orc go, hi, let's have a fight?
I mean, you have to, because the Fumble sprites are so good that that you've got no other choice than to take them. They're really fantastic. The Beastmaster sprites. But yeah, not really, right? Like, it's kind of cool having guard, and like at the starts of drives, sometimes it's nice to find some cool places to put the guards in. But yeah, they're usually not around by the ends of drives now. They tend to go off the pitch pretty quickly.
So
I've seen people use that guard well, though.
yeah,
It's like the few games I watched, the guard seemed quite key for those certain plays. Because they've got their wrestle, so you can chuck that guard into like really useful places.
and of course, even though they don't have dodge, they do have stunty dodging.
They do have stunty, yeah. Which when I was watching, I was like, it's almost an illusion its own way, because you're watching, you're like, you sort of forget they don't have dodge because they're stunties, they're small. You're looking at them and you're like, you're presuming they've all got dodge, which could help or not help each coach. But when I saw people playing, that guard did seem really useful because they've all got wrestle. You can get that in, and then you can start those, like, when you like knock a line down from one end, they sort of seem to have a little bit of the ability to do that, where other stunties don't really.
Yeah, like undoing a hem.
Like
Sometimes you just need to get that one thing going, don't you? And then you can pick it
Yeah.
apart from there. And if you've got those couple of
Yeah.
guards to put in, then you can get that first block, which then, as you said, undoes the line,
Yeah.
and suddenly there's some crumbling going on.
Yeah,
Okay, interesting.
that's sort of how I saw people using it. But like Elyod was saying, they might not last long, so it's getting the most out of them while they're still on the pitch.
And that is the great competition, because goblins are, even with the slight buff to the bombers, are still absolutely terrible. Do we think goblins are nerfs? Do we think goblins are going to stay, at the very bottom, or do we think gnomes are the new, oh my goodness, race right now?
And goblins are at the bottom.
They're still worse, are they?
Yeah, 100%. I don't see gnomes dropping below that for sure.
Okay. So, in terms of a release, no one was excited except Elyod. Are we wrong? Were gnomes? Do they fit the world? Are they a good thing for Blood Bowl? Come on, Elyod,
When I
persuade
saw
us.
them, when I saw them, I was like, "Oh Jesus, these look bloody awful!" Like I really didn't like them, and
Painters
like I
seemed
saw
to like
someone
them,
else.
didn't they?
They came out on like 1st of May, and I thought in my own head, and then saw someone post it, and it was like, "Oh, they're like a month late for like April Fools," because that's what it looked like. And it was like, where have they come from? Like, where have they got to this? But then actually, loads of people absolutely loved them. So who knows? But I like the rules of them. The rules are quite interesting. They've made, I think, an interesting team. I don't know if they like made the rules and thought, what the fuck can we make that will match up with this? Or the other way, have they made a team and thought we want this sort of style team? I don't know how they design, especially gnomes, like if you took Khemri, Tomb Kings, whatever they're called, you sort of roughly know what you're aiming towards, but where this team's come from, no
I mean, it
idea.
is really interesting. I
No idea.
instantly think, trying to break it, as you always do, the first thing I think is, if any of these get knocked over, they're as good on the ground to me, where they can't get hit again.
Hmm.
Because they've got
Hmm.
jump up. They're a little landmine. You can't cage anywhere near them. You can't trust anyone standing next to them, because they could jump up. And anything that's on the ground still has its move, because if you've not marked it, it jumps up and has its max move anyway. So at least they might be the sort of ultimate play from the ground team. But do I want my gnomes knocked over? They're not going to be there.
They use wrestle to get themselves down.
Of course,
So if you hit
yes, yeah,
them,
yeah.
1 in 9s, they're wrestling you down. So yeah,
A
they're
little, a
interesting.
little ironic that, of course, right after they're released, fouling gets a minor nerf. And that they're a race that starts with guard, and it's the guard that is nerfed off fouling. So they're certainly not going to be the most effective foulers, but it's another fouling heavy looking team to me. Or certainly, as Elyod says, key removals, perhaps by getting, using your wrestle and guard to get down a key piece that you want off their team.
It's honestly, for me, they play a little bit like Underworld, which is completely wild to say, I realize. But, the defense is, isolating players and knocking them down, and then, trying a slightly less worse one, a slightly more, slightly worse one turn than the Underworld, but still pretty decent one turn, and then maybe even a DAC on offense. So, yeah.
Because you've still got
So,
the other fox to, if it's alive, to fill in like a snotling, haven't you? To fill in an awkward
yeah,
hole
yeah, yeah,
on a
yeah, can
very
do.
easy dodge through, a 1 in 36 dodge through.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, yeah,
you've got
exactly.
gnomes to get into other little places, and then you've got a tree to do the big heavy push, or to get the 3 dial maybe. Yeah, I can see how you could, and you're pushing a 7 piece, which it's not easy, but it's not impossible, is it?
No, yeah. In the ideal case, if you're playing in, some kind of progression plays, you're getting movement, you're stacking because they have terrible skill access as well. Like all they have is secondary edge. So for me, it's just paying to get move on them as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
mean, in this rule set, no carriers are actually the movement they're listed at.
Exactly.
Everything's +1 or +2. So you like.
and is that again? So if I'm coming on Fumble, should that be expecting that any race I make, no matter what, my ball carrier should be the first thing it should be targeting is getting plus move,
I
pretty
mean,
much.
lot of them, it's something you definitely want to go after. I don't know. I am going to make a gnome team. It's going to happen. I think it's interesting. I
Okay.
think there's a lot of little things about them where it's like, I wonder how this all would work together. Um, the jump up's interesting for the reason you said, right? I think Trickster is like weird, but I was watching Happy Group play and he just had he had his Trickster just standing on the sideline because it can't be served.
Right.
So you get a little spread there, or next to a tree, so your opponent's not going to follow. So then, like, if they don't knock it down, you can move. There's a
Yeah.
lot of little things like that that I do think that, like, that's why watching some of the coaches I mentioned who are very creative. Like, okay, what can you do with this you can't do with the other stunties? Because it is its own thing, which we need. Like, if they're going to add new teams, teams that play their own way are the most interesting.
Right, now that is an interesting comment. I mean, I think teams that play their own way we're all in favour of. I think it's one of the reasons that everyone, I mean, I am in the faction that thinks we should let them go, but I think it's why everyone's really hesitant to let Slan go, is they did have their own unique thing. And missing that from the game feels like we're missing something. We're saying we're not going to have that anymore. I still, they're not legal. I just don't want them to be. The further we get down that road, the more the NAF's going to have to invent stuff to keep them up to date, and I think that's a slippery slope. But talking about bringing new stuff, there's two sides to that. There's teams bringing a new dynamic or a new focus or a new way of playing or even a new style. But then there's a new skill. And with both the latest releases, we've had Hit and Run with the Amazons, and now we've had Trickster with the Gnomes. So can we expect that we're just going to constantly get new individual skills now? And I mean, it's already happening with superstars. Every star gets an individual skill now.
We also have Pick Me Up with Norse, which was the team before. Well,
Yeah.
and
And Drunkard
vampires.
came in there. We didn't have Drunkard before that.
Yeah, vampires obviously have their own unique thing too, but
Yeah, but that was a return.
they have
Yes, it is a new. It is an individual skill. So
but
is that what we're going to have to get used to now? Is a new race means a new skill? Is that?
seems like it, which I'm not a huge fan of. And some of them, like Hit and Run, I do wonder, like next rule set they make, are some of these skills going to become selectable for other teams? Like, is this them testing things out that they're planning to bring in later?
You see, I didn't see Hit and Run as all that powerful until I saw someone that was much smarter than me playing a game of Amazons, and then I thought,
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's
I've left the ball out of scoring range on turn 8, knowing that if they blitzed me, I could move. Knowing that on my blitz the next turn, I could get the extra movement.
yeah.
Um, you
It's
can do things that are you're not supposed to be able to do them.
yes. And as with Bloodlust, which I've always called, a hypnotic gaze, which I always called hypno cheat, when you're changing the fundamentals of the game, it really takes it into a whole different headspace of how do I plan for this, how do I respond to this. Or your usual, this is the 1 to 10 things I do when I start my turn. Suddenly you're facing something that doesn't behave in the same way. Numbers 4 to 7 now need to not be there or need to be done earlier in your turn ordering. And that really changes how you focus on it. And it does mean that if you turn up, at a tournament with a race people aren't used to facing, you've got that, half the win is there already because they just don't know what that process should be in order to ensure that they're safe against whatever it is that you can do that they're not used to. I remember at the NAFC, I think I was game 4 for someone with a Slan team, and they'd faced 3 people that just had no idea how to keep safe against Slan that had 1 guard. And then he looked at my dwarf cage, which had diagonal guard corners on the team of 5. And he didn't have an answer because he hadn't ever had to answer that question. Because everyone he'd asked his slang question to before didn't have answers to it. Are we in favour of races with their own skill? Is that a good way to develop the race? Elyod's shaking that head. Why not? It's giving us all sorts of unique things.
Just complicates like the game space, right? Complicates the rule set. It's a big problem with this rule set in general was a lot of extra bits and pieces that don't add much to the game, I don't think, but just make it a lot more complicated, like the star player skills and that kind of thing. It's just more stuff that people starting the game need to know and remember. So I don't think it adds enough to be worth the extra complexity.
Yeah, there is definitely that barrier to entry that it raises, but it gives back diversity and complexity of game experience, doesn't it? I mean, if I face you and I say, okay, you've never faced Amazons before, here's the one new skill you're going to have to learn. I'm not sure how arduous that is it? But I get if there's 40 stars and each one has their own 1 or 2 different things I have to learn, that does start to feel like a lot for me to really comprehend how this game works. Neil, where are you on this? Where's that spread for you?
I think overall, like, it's a strange one. For me personally, I think I'd prefer them not to have those skills. However, I think maybe there's like a lot of people and a bigger part of the community where actually they like that. And in some ways, I sort of like it. It's sort of interesting, but I think the bit I don't, probably the star player ones, you could chuck those in the bin. That would be better because there's just so many and you just can't be bothered to learn them. it's not also just learning the skill, like you were saying with like hit and run. Like you can read it and go, okay, that's how it works. But like you say, until you see it used, that's really difficult for newer players. More experienced people, you're gonna pick up on it. You could read it and go like, oh, I could see how this will be used. Um, I think overall, like I think it's a good in a way. Like I think I'd lean towards it being a good thing they've got it. Each new team comes with something new. They bring something new to the game.
Mm.
It's how do you get that across? And I think the whole new Blood Bowl thing, like the rules on passing and stuff, and you imagine you've got like someone new to the game. It's really difficult to get into. Like, I think the whole game they could simplify bits, write bits better, to actually get newer people in. Like, I'd find it almost impossible to get someone who's probably never played a Warhammer game to play, if that makes sense. If you've played other
Yeah.
Warhammer games, I think you'd have like an advantage. But to take someone who's played no other games and get them in, like I think they're going to have to be quite invested for one reason or another.
I get you, but I mean, aren't we complicated enough anyway that that's always going to be the case? And hence, to make it that little bit more complicated, but actually what you're doing is saying, yes, you've learnt it by game 2 or 3, but actually for the next 50 games, every time you face a new person or a new race or a new team, there's going to be one or
Yeah,
two new things you have to learn. And so I'm
yeah,
not sure that that constant little bit of challenge, that constant newness, is that bad an idea? Isn't that sort of tempting? The idea that oh yeah, I'm still learning things. 3 years into the game and I'm still learning things. Doesn't that keep people motivated? I don't know. I mean, I've been here so long that I may be not the person to ask. Is nothing new? Oh, we had that back in 1982 when that rule was first. Yeah, so I mean, some of these are recycled ideas, of course, but to other people, hitting a new team and finding out that Amazon's, oh my God, they can do that. Wow. Um, and of course, most people's response is, I'm then going to take them to the next tournament and win with that. But it does give you that push, doesn't it? Colin, are you with me
yeah.
that let's not fear the new? Let's have yet more new and exciting and interesting things.
I mean, I definitely like new teams that play differently. I do think it depends on the team. Like, do Amazons really need a skill no one else has? I don't know. I think Gnomes having Trickster, a skill no one else has, is much cooler because, like, you know, they're not supposed to be great anyway. Like, so it just kind of depends. I think part of the problem with adding
You've
new rules
offended
is
Elyod. But yes, they are. They're silly, and to add a little silly thing that, I mean, I think if you lose to Gnomes, tough. So no one's going to be that bothered by them doing something silly and maybe completely mad you didn't expect. But Amazons were always solid, so to give them something special that, I mean, as Jocks just said, BB Jock, he went to a tournament, he was surprised by some of the things that Hit and Run did that he wasn't waiting for, he wasn't ready for.
yeah, and like I played Amazons in the Immortal Cup online that you mentioned earlier, and like I definitely had some opponents where they did not understand defensive, um, which is a skill you can actually take. Like, so they already had something that like in the tournament scene people don't see
Yeah,
because I've only seen one person ever actually take defensive to a tabletop tournament, and it was myself on like a different team.
yeah.
So like, do they need the hit and run as well? So for me, it just kind of depends. Like some teams, I think it could be interesting, a little fun. Others, it's like this is already one of the teams that's really strong. Like, do you really want to risk giving it something breakable?
Um,
Is there a little risk as well? You take something like Gnomes, you give them like a special skill. Probably they're not going to like shoot up into first place.
yeah,
You potentially take another team, you could accidentally almost give it a skill where you're like hit and run. You look at it on paper by itself, you're like, okay, not like huge, but once you chuck that into a solid team already, it gives a huge advantage, and you've sort of got that risk. With Gnomes, you can give them a few special things. It's probably not going to make them like destroy everyone, but other teams like Underworld, those sort of like swarming has made them like a fantastic team.
yeah. I mean, Hancock raised the point as well. Hancock's in the chat. We'll be trying to get him on One World, One Blood Bowl fairly soon. I want to do something about the sort of the rising stars of the Blood Bowl world, the new people coming up, and I hear he pretty much won the NAFC. So be good to have him on talking about his rise up through the tabletop ranks. Um, you're talking about having these special skills and these new releases. Is it going to muddy balance, as if balance is something that Blood Bowl's ever had or should be craving? So what do we think about that? Does it make it harder to balance them?
I mean, it depends there what your objective is, right? Because it's kind of clear that the people who make the game don't want everything to be completely balanced, right? So the question is like, how much balance do you want? I guess, but I agree, it probably makes it more difficult, yeah. But difficult to say what's ideal.
I mean, in terms of the balance, I've never given a shit about balance in Blood Bowl. I think deliberately we have an unbalanced game, and that's good. I like it that someone can choose to waggle their e-penis by, saying I'm going to take gnomes and do well with them. I think that's fantastic. Someone else can say, I'm only interested in the top 5 races, and I'm going to only coach them in their absolute sweet spots for the TV, and I'm then going to say I'm the best Blood Bowl player in the world. And if that's what floats their boat, I think it's great. There's a system where they can do that as well. But I don't know. I do worry what we're trying to leave people to have with all these constant new teams, and I don't think having them all balanced is a goal. I think where it impacts negatively is in tournament planning, because how do you drop gnomes into a tier and know that when people come up, they're not going to face something that either feels completely underpowered for them to be coaching or overpowered for them to be facing? And really seems that most tournament organisers are trying to, at least to some degree, avoid that in their pairings. So maybe that's my big worry about these new things, is it perhaps takes us a year or so to understand where they land within Blood Bowl.
Yeah, like vampires were pretty clearly tiered too low in tournaments right after they showed up. Like, I took them to one in January, and playing a guy who's played 30 games of Blood Bowl with me on vampires, like, I'm not having fun because it's just like I'm naming my score, because they do so much uniquely. And I mean, I can't complain about things being overpowered if I'm playing vampires and Amazons mainly, because, like, hey, but it's, I've always enjoyed that Blood Bowl's not really balanced, but it can be something a new player in a tournament runs into, and they're like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, if someone's played 30 games of Blood Bowl and faces you, aren't they in trouble anyway?
Yeah, but it feels worse when it's 4-0.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's that with vampires you can really humiliate someone, not just beat them, maybe.
And you have to score quickly because your team might implode. So, like, you can't be like, I'm going to take my foot off the gas in the same way. Like, if I'm playing nobility and I win 1-0, it feels like a game the whole time. If I'm playing vampires and I kick to start, the game's over on turn 4.
Yes. Yes, I think there was one game I played as vampires in a tournament, and the kick was somewhere there was just absolutely no way I should have been going for the ball. And they were able to get lots of people back to defend it and do some good stuff on the line of scrimmage. And I just threw everything forwards anyway. And of course, because they're vampires, it all worked out. You can find holes, you can make holes. Nowhere is safe. And they looked at me at the end of that drive, which was again about 3 or 4 turns wrong, and said, what do you do? And I really didn't know what to say to them, because if it works for vampires, I just don't know what the answer is to that question. So that's something we haven't been discussing. In the 6 months I've been gone, I would have said I think vampires are going to rise. If I knew that I wouldn't be back for 6 months, and I would have left predictions, one of them wouldn't have been that gnomes would be released. So that absolutely outflanked me. And at the time I thought, well, that's shit. No one's going to love those. And then instantly the painters loved them, and instantly I heard that Elyod was loving them. And then it seems there is a niche in the community that loves a new stunty team, because Blackhawks didn't really scratch that for them, and is loving this new sort of perhaps even harder stunty challenge. So that's all good. It seems they can eventually, once we learn. Like I said, I do worry that at NAF they're going to be really different to how they are on Fumble. That ability to drop, 4 dodge, a pass, a leader, and then maybe some good skills on the trees is going to make them, a whole different proposition. But we'll learn where they need to be, and I think they're going to be a useful addition. But I would have predicted that vampires will get even better and are going to start to dominate some tournaments. I mean, I heard a whisper that's starting to come true. Has that been the case? And what are you thinking about vampires, guys?
Overall, with vampires, I haven't seen like loads of data on them or anything like that yet. I've used them in my local league. I used them at a tournament. This unusual one with vampires over time because, in one respect, like you're going to maybe get better at using them. I think they're like a really high skilled team. Like you have to really know what you're doing to use them. And I think if you get a difference in the coach's ability, that's going to really open that game up more, if that makes sense. But at the same time, they still feel like they've just got this slight like implosion button in them. They're a bit like they're very good. They're way better than stunty teams, but that sort of that high variance team, Norse stuff like that. They just feel that if you went to a 4 game tournament, one of those games is going to go wrong for you. You know, but you might 3-0 your other 3 games.
But if
So
four
they're
people,
quite an unusual one.
but if 4 people go to a 4 game tournament, is one of them going to get 4 good games?
Well, that's it. That's the sort of thing. That's what I haven't seen data on. It's a bit like I think potentially if you wanted to
I
win
wouldn't worry so
tournaments,
much about data, Neil. It's
potentially you would want to
2024.
go.
Trump's about to win the
There we
White
go.
House again. I think facts have gone long out of the window. I think feelings are just as important. So if you feel that to be the case, I'm prepared to take it as true.
Yeah, but also, will people get better at playing against them? So you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
There
that
we
would be
are.
interesting to see.
Stone cold facts from Neil Watt there that vampires are dominating because of the high variance. That we can take as an absolute truth. Elyod, do you agree? Should we be fearing the vampires? Do we need Zara the
Well,
killer back?
if only, if only. But yeah, it's interesting, right? And maybe Basil or Neil will be able to correct me on this, but I think up until this Chorf winning the Steel Gauntlet, has every major this year on Fumble been a vampire win?
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, ultimately, that's where sort of predominantly my interests lie, and where I can comment most, right? So, yeah, they're very dominant in these like uncapped TV tournaments for sure, right? Where they can build up and build up and build up, and and obviously we've got some pretty strong inducements in Blood Bowl, especially these days, even compared to previous rule sets. But there comes a point at which you can outscale that, right? And it's funny because for me, and a lot of this is like based on like personal play style and experience as well. For me, I still fancied Underworld. I still prefer the terrible 1200 TV Underworld team, horrible, Varag and Ripper and everything over the vampires. But probably even for me, that's no longer the case now with a slight nerf to Underworld. So yeah,
Wow.
vampires, competing at the top with gnomes, as we said.
Fear them, fear them. Um, when I hear uncapped TV is their natural home, I mean, I'm seeing 6 vampires which you can put a lot of development into. They start with some of them now with some good skills. The ability to throw 5 or 6 good skills on top of those nice basic starts that they've got looks great to me. Um, and then, of course, the thralls. I mean, you don't really want to invest in them, but nowadays you can keep the thralls maybe a tiny bit safer if there's 1 or 2 that you really don't want to be biting. You've got the options not to bite and things, so perhaps thralls can develop a tiny bit. But I mean, as you said, it's that ability to get up into the high TV levels. We're not therefore fearing them perhaps so much in the black box trophy environment, or in some of the lower capped minors. But in the uncapped, the big majors, they're doing incredibly well, where they can sculpt these wonder vampires. When I
Yeah.
hear uncapped environments, of course, my desire to look at the whole of Blood Bowl, as I do, like the Watcher figure in Marvel universes, makes me think of Blood Bowl 3 and its unlimited universe, its endless ability to repeat and recycle. If vampires arrived there, would they be terrifying?
I mean, they're terrifying everywhere.
Okay,
The big thing about the uncapped is it doesn't even have anything to do with that. It's like you can have 7 or 8 rerolls on vampires and it's worth it. Which, like, I mean, that was the big thing, right? So the
right.
first, so I won the Steel Gauntlet, the first one this year with vampires. So that was like going through Trophy, which Trophy's probably like the hardest environment for them overall. Um, no one's really been able to repeat the run I had. So I had an absurd team going, and I had 7 rerolls after 15 games. I was at like 1,800 team value in Gauntlet, and it's when you can just throw 4 rerolls at a problem. All of a sudden, those 2 pluses don't really matter. Now, like I had an Amazon opponent who took me to overtime, and I had 0 rerolls and had to run an 8-turn drive. That was hard,
So
but
if
as
we
long as multiple rerolls per turn are there, they are very strong.
now, at the risk of frightening you, I know you're American, Colin. I'm going to bring Darwin into this conversation, so you might want to, cross yourself or whatever. Is this are vampires the perfect predator for this system? Then do they make the best use of multiple rerolls in a turn?
Yeah, and they also are very good in the being able to choose your own stats
Right.
realm. Like
Okay.
that's one of the vampire teams floating around is at like 2,600 team value because they like to play much smaller teams off of Game Finder and just build an incredible team.
It's my word of the day. They predate on Game Finder.
Yeah.
That's the act of being a
But
predator. How smart is that word?
yeah, and I think they're great in the NAV tournaments too. Like right now, depending on tiering, like if I want to win a tournament, I would take vampires over
Right.
anything else
I
because
do
like
want to win a tournament. That sounds like a good thing. And James, the one that paints but always refuses to come on here and talk about painting, much to my shame, much as he's been asked. I don't have a vampire team, so I need to get one painted for me, Dewey. Is that, if I'm coming back to Blood Bowl, do I need a vampire team? Is that what I'm hearing?
If you're a
They're
dirty tryhard.
fun. Yeah, they are fun though. They are interesting. I wouldn't say they're interesting when they're at like uncapped environment, but I think they are interesting to use at like NAF tournament style thing, 1,300. Like you get interesting games. Like they're always good to watch.
Colin?
yes,
I mean, the answer to your question, Elyod, if I'm a dirty tryhard, is I I do like
Takes
to
one to
win.
know
Yeah, I
one.
do like to win. I can't deny that. I mean, I like to think I have fun no matter what, but I don't really know another way to play except to try quite hard. Yeah, that does sound a lot like me. Sounds like I need to try and persuade someone to paint me some vampires. So as they paint beautifully, someone out there must fancy painting some vampires for me. Um, I can't paint. I just can't. It would be embarrassing and shameful. So if you can, paint me some vampires. That's so shameless. Shameless. I am going to be shameless. I want vampires. I don't have them. I've checked on eBay. It's like 130 quid. I haven't got that. And even that, I think you're ripping off the person that's painted them. I think that's super cheap. So I haven't got what I think is already rudely cheap. It's a weird thing. I might have to try and find some money and get some nice vampires. Big purple cloaks or something. Um, on Fumble, what should I be trying to do? If I'm going to come back and I want to dip my toe in, I want to get my Blood Bowl mojo going again. Give me some advice. Elyod, you've transitioned over to Fumble. That's your main Blood Bowl hit now, I take it?
Yep, the only one outside the occasional TT tourney, obviously, sadly.
I should ask, by the
Sadly,
way, you were trying to get your life going. How's that gone?
Oh, not bad, thanks.
Good.
Feels like a bit of a tangent, but yeah, doing some part-time work at the moment. Yeah, going all right.
Excellent. Oh, well, good stuff. Sorry, I completely outflanked you and put you on the spot there in front of an audience of
No, it's always...
literally tens of people. So that's a little rude of me. But no, I genuinely, with warmth, I hope things are going well there, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's nice to see that you still got some time to come back. And I always enjoy your
Oh,
streams. Sometimes I do
always.
silently, but it's lovely to see you still on. That's another question in my head is, if I'm coming back to Blood Bowl, should I be streaming again? Is there anything out there worth streaming? Do people actually care about Blood Bowl? So maybe that's something that you out there as viewers could answer. If I was running a Twitch stream with actual Blood Bowl on it, would you want to watch? Would you care? If it was Fumble, if it was Blood Bowl 3, what is there in Blood Bowl that's worth doing for other people to watch right now? I don't know the answer. A lot of the streaming scene of Blood Bowl seems to have died off a bit, so I don't know if that's something worth coming back to or not. Neil, what do I need to think about or do as I'm coming back to Fumble? What should I be coaching or playing or dipping my toe into? I've even stepped aside. Krista asked me to because essentially I'm so lazy I did no work. I'm no longer head of leagues on Fumble. That's gone to Rasmus. He's been promoted and absolutely richly deserved. He's been putting the work in there for years and I've been taking what credit there is. So finally he is the official head of leagues on Fumble. I am now as I always was, which is admin without real remit or indeed actual desire to do much work. So I tend to just sort of sweep up around some of the more edge cases we're having of people that are having some issues with Fumble, which I know Neil concentrates on as well. The people that are really struggling, it tends to be me or he that tries to reach out and find a way to bring them back in. Can't always be done. We do lose some coaches that just can't game well with others, but we dislike doing so. If I'm coming back, what should I be trying to do? Where should I be coaching? What should I play?
I'd be if you had the time, then it's a black box trophy. try out some new teams, or like if I was going to go back in, I knew I was going to chuck like a good few hours in. That's where I'd be heading for. What I used to do in that was quite often do like potentially one squad just trying out bits and pieces, and then one squad which was more like a try hard like squad where it's like, right, I've got these 4 teams that I think I'm quite strong with, and go for that. Or you could just be heading for like just taking one sort of team. Like you're obviously a famed elf coach, as we all know,
Yep. Alpha
and
aficionado
just
is
trying
the.
to, that's it, and just trying to get like in the top however many for that to try and get them through for the gauntlet. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of options, but that's always the bit I preferred. Obviously, NAF tournaments are really well run on Fumble as well, so you've got those.
Yeah, I always used to enjoy those. I feel really out of touch with where the meta is, but you only get back in touch by throwing yourself in, don't you?
Yeah, and seeing what's happening.
Yeah. I've never felt the need to always be at the top. I just enjoy competing and having a good game. So perhaps that's it. Perhaps I just throw myself back in. Colin, what about my beloved dwarfs? Because as well as the elves, which are obviously my first love, I have played the occasional dwarf game. Are they doing all right in the modern world of Blood Bowl? Are they?
Yeah, they seem to be. I mean, they're still dwarves, I mean, obviously gnomes counter them completely because they make the tackle and the block useless. So, you got to be worried about gnomes now with your dwarf teams.
Um, Elyod, where should I go? You've been all over Fumble like a cheap suit. What's the most exciting, sexy bit right now?
Well, all of it. It's so great, right? Like Neil said about BBT, which is fantastic. Again, like you said, if you have the time, I guess if you have less time, but you are capable of scheduling, which is obviously always can be tricky for people. Then the minors and the majors to jump into, right? And
I think for the
so
next
so
couple of months, I mean, I'm still. If any of you do want to come and see us, by the way, I'm still on the London stage for the next 3 weeks in a play called. I can now talk about it. And all those social media bans have ended. So what I've been doing is I am in a minor role in a play called Player Kings, which is the Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1 and 2 cut together and then radically cut down so it still fits. I mean, it's long, it's still 3 hours 45, but that's 2 4-hour Shakespeare plays cut down to under 4 hours. And the reason that's been done is so that one of actually Queen Elizabeth's favourite Shakespearean character, Falstaff, or Falstaff, I should call him, not Fall, Falstaff. It's so that Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen, I should say, can play all of Falstaff in those 2 plays, which is the vast majority of him in the Shakespearean canon. He then has his own play, which is a one-off, called The Merry Wives of Windsor, where he's the sort of the main thrust through that play is him trying to beguile these women of money. But he plays in these 2 plays. He actually dies in Henry V, but that bit's cut in as well, just the speech about his death. So it's really
Jesus,
so
boy, yeah.
Ian McKellen can play that role. I play a couple of very minor little pieces here and there in it. I'm always in the background doing things, but I don't do very much. But I also do actually understudy the role of Falstaff, so that's why I was so incredibly busy. That's one of the great, huge roles of Shakespeare. And whilst I will hopefully never play it, because I only play it if Sir Ian McKellen is unwell, I need to be ready to at the drop of a hat. So it's really absorbed a lot of my life. It's a nice credit to have. It's been a fantastic company to work in. I'm very proud of the job that we've done. It's on stage for 3 weeks more. If you do want to come in London, so that's towards the end of June it ends. Then we have a compulsory week off, which is actually we're getting holiday pay for that time. So instead of it being put into our weekly, we're getting a week of holiday paid for. And everyone else is off to exciting foreign destinations, and I'm going to Loughborough, where I will be playing in the Home Nations Blood Bowl event. So, yeah, I've got 4 weeks until that happens, and I get to play some lovely Blood Bowl. And then after that, we're off touring the country for a month. So I will then be appearing for only 4 nights, but in then Bristol, Birmingham, Norwich, and Newcastle. Before ending at the end of July. So for the next 2 months, really scheduling isn't going to be something I can do because I'm going to be all over the place. I will have a laptop with me, but my evenings, my daytimes, I'm travelling a lot, and I've still got so much in my head that I need to focus on for this play that really, I think scheduling something is out of the question. So if I put that off for a couple of months, where else could I be dipping my toe?
well, yeah. In that case, BBT, I guess, like Neil mentioned, it's a fantastic environment to play in.
the pickup games it is. Yeah, I mean, I do feel motivated. I do feel I shouldn't turn up at Loughborough without any idea what the hell I'm doing. So maybe just a couple of games randomly on the trophy, see where that leads to, and then see who should I be fearing. Is there obviously Elyod? You're bang up the top, are you, or is Malmere still the dominant shark around these Fumble waters?
Well, this season, I don't know. We're not that far into the season, right? A month or so, but yeah, if we're looking at Potty, the overall so far this year, Dio's Player of the Year competition, I think it might be Malmö. Yeah, I know Happy Grew is doing really well. I don't think Happy Grew is still top or Malmö's pipped him or not. He just won another minor tournament, so yeah, Malmö are doing very strong this year.
He is a great player and a good friend of mine. I don't know if you'll see him at the UKTC, but he has agreed to be a barbarian, so I will be playing Blood Bowl with him in a month's time in Peterborough. Loughborough, sorry, the indistinguishable minor middle of England towns. So that'll be fun. I look forward to that. Where else? We are, as I said, 6 months into 2024. What else have I missed out on Blood Bowl wise? I've got a couple more episodes coming up where I'm going to concentrate on the tabletop side and on check in on the state of Blood Bowl 3 if it's alive, if there is any Blood Bowl happening there. What else should I be thinking about, talking about when it comes to Blood Bowl? Let's just bounce that around. Neil, what else has been happening this year for you?
You mentioned it a little bit, but you had the FAQ come out.
Oh yeah,
Obviously,
let's see if we can pull that up. I think we've got that to show people.
you've got like guard. I didn't think it was a major change in some respects. The guard not affecting fouls. It's like okay, as it will have an effect, but I don't think that was the overall issue with fouling. What else was there? The big one I think is the underworld one. Like how much will that swarming affect him? That's that I think could be huge. I think that could really like trim them down a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. So just before we close up, let's have a quick go down through this. I'm sure everyone's seen it. But on the 28th of May, so as we're recording this on the 2nd, that's only what, 4 or 5 days ago, the new 6 monthly FAQ came out, and with it we had a few other changes. We've referred to a couple of them, but it's worth just going through. So Underworld did get, as I said, the nerf that I personally have been calling for a good couple of years, and we've taken swarming off them. So swarming has gone. That's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. Like so many people I've spoken to recently have just been bored by Underworld, either using them or playing against them. Um, like I used them at UKTC, and it was like I took them because I knew they were going to be strong. But like I think I like in 6 games, I think I pitch cleared like 2 people or like close on, and it was just not really that much fun. And other people have said the same thing, like playing against them, playing with them even. Well, you used them, didn't you, in Brighton?
I did,
And
yeah.
like they're just you could see in people's eyes. It's like, did you enjoy your day using them? And people just like, not really, because you almost don't feel like you're playing games of Blood
And
Bowl.
things like when you do pitch clear or when you are utterly dominating, it doesn't have quite the same reward feel because it doesn't feel like it's quite
Mm.
so far along the bell curve. You haven't had that
Yeah.
extraordinary game. You've just done what Underworld do.
Hmm.
So maybe it's there. Underworld getting the nerf. Do we think this is enough of a nerf, Elyod? Are they going to be tamed?
Again, depends on what you're looking for. I think they'll still be really good. Definitely top end. Maybe tier one, depending on how you tier things. Ultimately, right. But yeah, I think it's an appropriate nerf. Let's put it that way. I think it's pretty, pretty well, sized.
Colin, are you happy?
Yeah, I'm getting to pretend that Elyod knocking me out of 2 tournaments recently were just because he was playing an overpowered team and not because he played very
It,
well.
it,
You
it
know, so
was.
that's always nice. But no, I think one of the issues with Underworld was it was like because they started with more than 11 players, if you didn't get removals, it felt like you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so now, as the opponent, you're not going in being like, okay, I have to get something off,
Yeah.
or I'm just going to get completely shut down. So I think that I think this is a good change. I think this will be good. Having a gutter runner on a team like that is always going to be good. Um, they still can get a lot out of stars. They're still going to be a strong lean team, but I do think this will bring them down a little bit and make them more enjoyable to play against. And I don't know about Az. I've never played them, so I don't know. Oh no, I actually tried them in one of the online NAF tournaments. It didn't go well, so
I
I
do
can't
remember, I
figure
think
them
the
out.
first time I ever coached them on tabletop, I think I forgot to swarm about half the drives I played, and I still missed a 1 in 9 to win the tournament, and finished either second or third. I I don't think they're going to disappear. I do think this might get them where we need them to be, which is back, in the top 1 or 2 races, but not 5 to 6 points ahead of everyone else in terms of win rate. And I think if we start there, that's a good aspiration as it is. Let's bring them back to the pack. Let's not have one race that is 6 points out ahead of everyone else. And then let's see where we go from there. I face a key decision, which is for the Blood Bowl Barbarians, because the 8 people assembled are all decent human beings. None of them wanted to coach Underworld. Literally not one. So they're all picked races, and no one had picked Underworld. And I felt as captain that as we're trying to, one of the things we're doing is lots of reasons we're doing the Barbarians. We're trying to help develop new players. So we've got some people along like Hancock is a Barbarian who I think should be in Team England, and if he isn't, he should be in the next year or two. So we're trying to develop some players that perhaps haven't got the experience yet to qualify for those national teams, but look like they've got the quality for it. We're giving a home to people like Andy Davo, who has left Team Wales or is leaving Team Wales and has taken the radical decision to rebrand himself as English. So as he transitions, he's going to take a seat at the Barbarians. And also, perhaps retired legends and just figures. I mean, I even talked to Elyod about maybe being a Barbarian one year. I mean, again, someone with a lot of Blood Bowl quality, but perhaps just doesn't tick enough of the boxes to be qualifying for a national team as yet. But could play good, attractive Blood Bowl, as the Barbarian rugby team does. So I felt perhaps I should play the Underworld just so that I can challenge these other teams. That was another of the reasons to give the home nations a competitive side team to play, with England feeling that none of the other teams are competitive with them. I felt I should take Underworld. So at the moment, in 4 weeks' time, I go to Loughborough and I'm coaching Underworld against some of the best players in the world. Obviously on Team England, and also Team Wales, Team Scotland, Team Ireland, and Team Malta. So should I be swapping? Should I maybe grab orcs or dwarves? Or should Underworld still, be alright?
You shouldn't have been playing him to begin with.
I've explained it wasn't. I'm doing it for others. I'm a giver.
You are just a very compassionate human being.
I am. I am.
So
I am.
I don't know. I mean, it's I haven't played against them now. I think they'll still be good, right? I think they'll still be a value team to play. So, but they're not going to be as good.
Well, if they're not going to be as good, shouldn't I swap to something else? Shouldn't I give the others a more competitive challenge?
Sure.
Presuming this event is like proper, it's the whole point. You get certain events where it's like, like different levels of seriousness, and I'm presuming this one, people are going to be taking their best teams for their squad, etc. Like everyone's going to be trying to maximise every little bit.
The
So I
hope
think
is that
within
both this
reason,
year and in future years, it is seen as a warm-up for Eurobowl.
yeah.
So it's
So
taken
I think
seriously about squad preparation. That said, the Barbarians, we want to play very much in the spirit of Barbarians rugby, which is competitive and hard, playing to win, but without the pressure that, say, a national team has. So it's very
yeah,
much about express yourself, go out there, have fun, and play aggressive Blood Bowl, is what I've been saying to the people. Take that pressure off of, get us a result, get us a result. No, play good, aggressive Blood Bowl, and then we'll see what happens. Enjoy yourself. So it's a slightly different focus, but yeah, we're not trying hard. Let's put it that way.
yeah. So I think you've got to go for what you reckon either is going to be best for you and or the team. I guess the sort of if that's going to be your best option is to go for Underworlds for the team, you take that. If you think actually Underworld have dropped a little bit and you could, I don't know, someone's probably taking Amazon to take something else that you reckon you could do better with, then go with them. There's also your sanity, like do you want to play them for 2 days or whatever it
No,
is?
I didn't
Because
in the
there is
first
always that.
place. Yeah, I didn't really
Yeah.
in the first place. Welcome to the raid from Jimmy Fantastic. Thank you very much. Jimmy's someone I want to talk to. I hear he's getting himself back into Blood Bowl with the Super League on Blood Bowl 3. So maybe we can round him up for that episode. That'd be great to see what life there is in Blood Bowl 3. That's definitely going to be part of me coming back. I want to talk about that. Elyod, should I be dumping the underworld? Should I be tryharding and going for, I don't know, orcs?
You probably right from what you've said and for your clear distaste for playing Underworld. Maybe in terms of like try harding and trying your best to win and that kind of thing. If it was me, I'd be taking the Underworld. If I mean, unless vampires were available, I assume someone else is playing
Yeah, I
vampires.
think we've got someone else on the vampires.
Yeah. Yeah, if for me, if it's between Underworld, Orcs, and Dwarves, I'm taking Underworld all day of the week because I played a lot of Underworld, and whenever I play Dwarves and Orcs, I do terribly. So for me, it's the Underworld, but your skill set is not my skill set for
I mean,
sure.
I'm kind of interested in orcs. I haven't coached them much under this new rule set, and I do think they should be much more aggressive, much more capable for what was a very capable team anyway. I'm not a lover of dwarfs in this rule set. They tend not to build very well under any amount of money. And there's just so many strength 4 teams now, so many inherently a lot of strength teams, that no matter how much guard you've got, you're really often outpowered in the bash fights. And yes, you've maybe got an edge over, say, Skaven and Underworld that other teams don't, which is great that they're in the meta for that. But still, an elf team only needs one good shot to ruin your whole day. So they're very challenging to coach. I guess in seriousness, if I'm not taking the piss, I'm tempted to stick with Underworld just because I'm interested to see with that nerf where they sit in the meta. And I'm not a mug. I'm a decent player. If I take, and I know what I'm doing with Underworld, having won tournaments with them, as we described, that just means turning up with Underworld, or it did a year ago. So perhaps me going with Underworld isn't a bad thing to do to show people what they're capable of in that quite competitive setting. That might be interesting. Might be something worth thinking about as a genuine gift to Blood Bowl. Rather than just, I swear it's true. No one wanted them, so I felt I had to take them. It wasn't just the 78% win rate they get on NAF events. Okay, so I'll be thinking about Loughborough in light of that. Let's just go back because there were some other things that happened. It wasn't just the change to swarming. I just want to show off some of the other little changes we had. So, Guard got a much needed nerf, surely. I mean, piss taking aside, Guard has always been one of the best skills in the game. Did any of us understand why it got that buff in 2020 Blood Bowl when suddenly it was usable on fouls? Is this a good change, bad change? Quickly around the group, what do we think? Neil?
Good change. I mean, guard was like the last skill that really needed to get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like it would make gnomes too strong, so they really had to get ahead of that.
Oh, that skill I always take. Well, now I'll take it even more. Neil, good change?
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, I don't think it's going to make huge changes overall to the game, but it's sensible. It does seem like, I don't know, have they changed who's running Blood Bowl
Yes, they
recently?
have. I
It
was going to
feels,
save that to the end because I think we might find that with there's not many objectives to any of these. But let's see. Elyod, good change?
yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of why they changed it in the first place to work on fouls is for consistency, I guess. Maybe you'd expect it if you were new to work on fouls if you worked on blocks as well. But yeah, like Basil says, it was probably a very strong skill already. Right, didn't need to get any stronger for sure.
And as it actually says in the FAQ, it was part of this. I think we've all seen in the 2020 Blood Bowl a real rise in fouling. The fouling meta, almost a sort of fouling arms race as to who can get the most assists in, who can get the key removals early. And perhaps it's going to limit that a little bit. A team it's really going to hit, and I'm sure this wasn't ideal, and it does mean I think someone needs to have a look at them. Black Orcs are going to really suffer from this, aren't they?
Mm.
Because having their Black Orcs with guard access and their goblins able to use that as part of their fouling strategy, I felt was quite key to them. So maybe that's a team that's going to really suffer and perhaps needs another quick look. Goblin Bombers now get access to the passing skill. That seems an incredibly simple but good change, isn't it? Anyone going to say anything bad about that?
No, it's definitely good. The only issue is it might mean more people take bombers, and at tournaments, the throwing bombs take so bloody long with rolling all the dice. Fine online, absolutely brilliant online, not a problem, but oh my god, the amount of dice you have to roll for a bomb can
Because of all the scatters and then all
be
the hits,
ridiculous.
and yeah.
Yeah, it can just in a tournament setting when you have got 2 hours 15 minutes, it it can cause issues.
So wonderful, something automated like Fumble, but perhaps a bit terrible
Yeah,
on tabletop. Yeah.
yeah, but
Um,
overall it is a good change. It makes sense.
is it enough? Is it going to save goblins?
Yeah, they're going to be top ranked now, easily. They'll be jumping over Underworld.
Will it be just goblins and gnomes right up there above Underworld
Yeah,
now, Elyod? Is that?
yeah, fighting for top spot.
Why do
I
they
mean,
hate
would be great,
goblins so?
wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just for a year, maybe? Just give us 6 months. Just let us have proper Doom Divers back. That'll do. Poor goblins. I don't know what it was. Someone just hates them because they've just got nerfed every damn change for so long now. Colin, any problem with guard?
With guard?
Yeah.
No, I mean that was a change that needed to happen. The bomber change I think is good. I mean
Yeah.
it's making them marginally better is good.
And similarly, we've got a couple of little clarifications on the FAQs around Bloodlust. As far as I was concerned, it was all fairly straightforward, and really only seemed to be stopping people that were trying to exploit, doing things with vampires that were on the ground and saying they didn't have to roll Bloodlust to do it. Which, again, once someone is explaining why something that's obviously wrong is right by the way the rules are written, then you know they're actually in the wrong, and someone should just laugh at them and go off and have a beer and stop listening to that dullard. But in tournaments you can't do that, so I guess that was right. And then we had the gnomes come out. So let's circle back to that wonderful question we left hanging. There is someone new in charge of Blood Bowl. We knew that about a year ago. Are we starting to see that impact? Do we have, whisper it quietly, have they put an adult in charge of Blood Bowl?
Yeah, I mean they've clearly rolled back some of the things that changed in Blood Bowl 2020. Each
Yeah.
FAQ takes some of the changes that I may have not loved and been like, you know what, let's rethink this one. So I'm very curious where it's going to go from here, and cautiously optimistic.
Wow, there's an interesting turn of phrase. Elyod, is this a sign to you that someone sensible might be taking the reins of Blood Bowl?
Yeah. Well, I mean, taking the reins of Blood Bowl seems inherently an unsensible activity, but other than that, yes, and tentatively so, because while there were a lot of weird things about 2020 and a lot of like horribly unbalanced things, this kind of thing that do seem to be being rolled back, which is great. For me, the real test is if and when we get a new rule set right, and how nicely structured and consistent that rule set is. Because for me, that was a big problem with 2020 was the rule set in and of itself. It was just not very nice and very inconsistent. Lots of niche problems with it. So we'll see.
It's like you read my mind, Elyod. You can't believe where we're going to go next. Neil, do you think someone sensible is now running Blood Bowl? Do you think we're heading in a direction that excites you?
Yeah, I think hope you always hope with these little things. Like overall, when like 2020 came out, people went a bit mad. Like, oh, it's gonna be ruined. It's gonna be this. Gonna be that. Probably the worst thing about it was some of the writing of the rules and some of the things that appeared to have been added in almost at random. Like stuff where you're like, don't know if they were really thinking about this. Or it almost like changes that they hadn't really planned. They're just maybe put in almost by accident. And it sort of feels like we're coming out of that now, and it feels like they're just tidying up a little bit. And there's obviously people are talking. Oh, it's 2024. They're going to release a new
Well,
variant.
here we go.
But
Yes, you've read my
even if they
notes.
don't, yeah, can they? Are they just going to do a tidy up one, like an anthology, or I don't know what you want to call it, like a rewrite?
I do sometimes actually genuinely write some notes. I've got a little pad and everything, and I actually sometimes write. If I think it's going to be needed, then I do some effort. I put some effort in. I write some little notes. This week it is entirely figurative. But if I had notes, my notes would say at the very end, ask them about that thread on Fumble. So that's what I'm going to do. So they haven't been super smart and just anticipated it, right? I was going there anyway. Now, back when we did the Fumble podcast, we always used to go on to, what was the most popular thread on Fumble and what's it talking about, and then we'd talk about that subject. A really popular thread on Fumble lately has been, it's 2024, 4 years after the 2020 release of rules.
Hope in
And
Blood Bowl.
because,
Goodness.
yes, hope in Blood Bowl, it is insane indeed, Muppet. We're 4 years after 2020, and everyone knows that Games Workshop works on 4-year development cycles. There's obviously a new rule set coming in the autumn. I'm going to give you all some wishes, up to 3, arbitrary number, you can do whatever you want, obviously. Only 3, has to be 3, unless it isn't. Wishes for a new rule set. I don't think it's coming in 2024. I mean, it might be. I might be wrong, but I just think I would have heard stronger rumours by now. It might be. It does make sense. They do like 4-year cycles. It might be it's in development. They have been having some problems in terms of production. It might be delayed a bit. It might be seen in 25. But let's pretend. Let's pretend that Garion, who started that beautiful thread on Fumble, very worth a look. All the usual mad people talking all the usual nonsense about let's move to a D73 system. If we had a D73 for everything, it would all be exactly, whatever. The Mayans predicted that that would be the perfect dice for Blood Bowl. So all the usual nutters are there talking all their usual stuff, but some people are saying here are the big changes I would like to see. We have quite a while with this rule set now, even if I haven't been involved in the last 6 months. I'm basically talking to give them some thinking time as they've worked out what the question is, and now I'm going to come really unfairly to Colin. If there's a 2024 Blood Bowl, what do you want to see in it, my friend?
Well, I would like to see the skill up system revert to what it used to be, because I really don't like this one. It's my biggest problem with the rule set as far as like me enjoying myself.
Why not? I can have a cheap random, or I can save and get something I like, and there's an even number of everything, and it all matches and balances. It's like going to a shop and buying something, like I'm in Stardew Valley.
Because it was really cool when you rolled something cool. I felt good. It gave me positive feelings. This one doesn't give me positive feelings. It's like curated. Other two, I mean, vampires need to be reworked. Like, there's some obvious changes there. Revert Bloodlust to what it was. Make Hypno Gaze a little less good. But the big one for me is make Hail Mary Pass good again. That's what I really want, more than anything else.
They did absolutely screw that up, didn't they?
They did. I was taking it all the time. The only other person who really was taking it was Dio. But I was taking it all the time, and I'm convinced they did it just to spite me.
Yeah, I have heard that a lot of Games Workshop strategy has been about upsetting Americans. Key factor for them.
You know, I definitely understand that, you know, when you can get one over on us in an area, you got to do it because there's not very many of them you can.
Right, well, we're going to have some responses to that. But Neil, feel free to talk about some of the madness Colin's thrown out, but also your own choices for how the world and the future of Blood Bowl should be. Let's pretend that there's going to be a Blood Bowl 2024 rule set, which there definitely isn't. What's in it?
So I think, sort of agreeing mainly, it's something like the rules effectively being tidied up, like not massively changed, roughly what they are now, but tidied up so they're not all over the place. That, like, maybe just getting them so they sort of align a little bit better. Like some of the weird stuff, like the passing skills, which are just like, oh, that's just painful. Like trying
Awful.
to think of a
They are
system.
awful.
Yeah,
That's
awful.
the word
Yeah,
I'd use.
and like just trying to like work that. So if you're going to have that rolling random system, is there a way of having passing skills that isn't awful? Maybe it's only D6 of them. You know, there's not 2 lots.
Perhaps we don't
You know,
need 12. Revelatory,
yeah,
Neil.
you really don't. I think another one sort of on the gaming side would be, would they release a new box? And it'd be really nice to see something like High Elves versus Tomb Kings, you know, 2 of the sort of teams of legend come out. That'd be really cool. Again, they could have like little new skill each. It'd be a nice little, like, that'd be like, I don't know, or 2 teams that really face well against each other. I think they did well with the Black Orcs and their ability. Like it introduced 2 interesting teams. So yeah, teams of legend, and they've got, what's it called, like Old World or something they've brought back at the moment. So you've got a load of Tomb Kings there. Like, you sort of feel like it fits with the main, I don't know what you call it, their main schemes or their main patterns that are going on.
I'll see. I mean, I love a High Elf. Well-known and famous
Yeah.
fact. And it's probably why me and the lovely Kefug are friends, is because we used to play the 2 High Elf teams in the White Owl League. that were famously up in the top league for a long time. And we were just all constantly facing each other. I love me a high elf. Tomb Kings, great race, Krista's favourite race, and I love me Krista. But
Yeah.
you're a toxic nightmare for not mentioning Chaos Dwarves, the other missing team
Yeah.
of legend, and they should be in your damn box. Give me my
Yeah, it's just,
hats,
and
give me my beards.
I feel they might not. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? But that sort of something on those lines, I think, would be good. Um, if
And they
this
should
would
get
be more
trolls
of
back.
like a, this is something that, in a weird way, I don't want them to do because I
Okay.
don't really trust them to do it. But if they could actually make passing more part of the game, they sort of. It was almost like it looked like they had. That was what they were aiming for,
It
and
was
it
the promise.
actually
I
turned out to be.
remember, right? It's not like Trump. You can't just tell me that it never happened. Definitely at the start of the whole, there's going to be a new Blood Bowl set, and we're going to do
Yeah,
something with passing. The idea was because we want passing back in Blood Bowl. It was.
yeah,
People said that. That was a thing. And then that's what they did to it. And it's like, well,
yeah.
you've made it less attractive. Why? Do you not remember your design intention and what you've done? They seem to be quite a long fucking way apart. There's an
Yeah.
engineer near here that must be thinking, well, that's just process. That's how that happens. Uh, Elyod, is that true? Are you thinking, give him a break? It's just a process.
Uh, I, I don't know. I'm not sure about giving the break. I don't know what they were thinking. I think they made a big mess of large parts of 2020, and I guess to like go into the wishes, which were
Here's your wish
mostly
list. What
covered
do you want?
by, yeah, mostly covered by Baz and Neil already, really. But yeah, number one is kind of the most boring, but most important one, which is the better structure of the rules. You know, use of keyword is something that
Yeah,
that
I was going to
Krista
mention
always
that.
mentions.
Yeah.
Is very good. So yeah, very more well structured, more internally consistent rules. A lot of internal inconsistencies in 2020. So that would be great. And again, like Baz said, the skulls, right? And you said yourself, you know, why do we even need 12 skulls? You know, there's so many completely terrible skills that barely get used at all, and it's okay having a range of sort of strengths of skills, but I think a lot of them could be cut or combined with each other,
Yeah.
and a lot of what could be in good skills and bad skills is how widely applicable they are in different contexts, right? For example, guard versus sure hands, right? You're quite happy on a lot of teams if you take guard on every single player, you know. Sure hands, you're probably only going to want that on one player, but it's still a really good skill, right? It's
Yeah.
still a skill that you're gonna really want on one
Delivers
player.
great
So
value on one or two
ex-
players.
exactly. So there's the possibility for skills of like different strength, different sort of degrees to which you want to take them on players, but they're still, you know, good and valuable. And a lot of skills don't cover either of those bases and could just be dropped or combined with other similar bad skills. You know, we could have five passing skills in one that's still less viable than guard, right? So yeah, those are the big ones. I guess. Yeah, towing down vampires and gnomes, I guess, as well would be cool. I guess one thing I don't know if this is what I want or not, strangely, but the injury table. I feel like I don't like the new injury table. I don't like Appos not being as strong as they were. But so yeah, I kind of like that to be toned down a bit, closer to how it was before. But I'm not sure. Death is good, right, in Blood Bowl. It's still important that people
Yes.
die. So
Yes.
it's an interesting one.
I'll see you unnerfing the Apo table and raise you regen on a 5 plus. Apo gets hit. Every single rule set, Apo gets worse. And regen hasn't got worse for a long time. Regen teams never have problems keeping people on the pitch. Let's nerf regen. That's my random shout. In terms of what I wishes I would change for the rule set, you came up with a big one. I've talked to some very smart people and eventually understood this idea about tagging skills, which is very technical. So what it means is that there's a thread through the rule set where skills attach a label to them, which then tells you how they get used by other things within the rule set. And basically in 2020, they seem to have gone sort of 2/3 of the way through the rules doing that, using very specific language to tag things and drop them into nice categories. And then, I don't know, that person had a day off or went on holiday and someone else finished up, and they just stopped for the last sort of quarter of the rule set. So while it wouldn't be seen by a lot of us that play Blood Bowl, trust me, that could be a huge change for the better. Just in terms of how things progress, how solid and repeatable the rule set is, how amendable it is in the future, how programmable it is for gaming systems, that would be a huge change for the better from what I hear. I would like the superstars to go. I think it's interesting. I know why Games Workshop are selling them. And in a sense, it's not something I know we can have, because part of the financial model is to just punt those stars out. And that's why they've got all those special skills. But I either think you need to make them a bit less accessible, or, and my ideal solution, up the price so you can still have as many people can still buy them and paint them. They can have their special skills, but we just see them a bit less. Or you've got to take the special skills away because it's confusing, there's too many of them, and some of them are just ridiculously overpowered. And whilst the guy in charge of Blood Bowl does seem a bit sane and sensible, and like we might be starting to get good changes, tap your head and touch some wood, I just don't see how bringing in a unique individual for a one-off star is ever going to be easily balanced. We're going to get more that break the game, or that people work out how to break 6 months after someone's designed them. And that's never going to stop. So I think there's a problem with the stars. But the final point I'd make is actually a change I don't want them to make. And I didn't think in 2020 I'd say this. And it's really interesting that none of the three of you have cropped up with this, so perhaps this is my sort of closer. Oh, this is going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I'm going to stand by it, so this is dead serious. I don't think we should take multiple rerolls away. I didn't like it. I do accept that lots of people still think it was done by accident, and it may well have been. At the moment, I'm enjoying the tactical changes. I get that some people feel it means that you can just get enough rerolls and power your way through no matter what. And that frisson of using a reroll early and having a whole turn knowing that catastrophe was right there in your face is gone. Sometimes. On balance, I like it. So there we are. I'm saying I think we keep them, at least for this rule set change, if there is one, which there won't be. And then we see where we are in 4 more years' time. Do we agree with my controversial hot take? When I put this out on TikTok, obviously, it's just going to be me saying, let's keep multiple rerolls. TikTok is the future. There we are. You can meme that. Look, I pressed a button like they do on TikTok. Neil, multiple rerolls.
Overall, I don't mind it. The only times I
You're
don't
with me, my brother.
really like it is on a team that's basically built to one turn. You just build a team, don't play for a half and one turn. I don't know, that's the only time I really see issues with it. Oh, the rest of the time I haven't generally playing. Maybe vampires, they could be the other example actually. But overall,
So the growth in what I'm going to choose to
issues.
call the withdrawn offense, or even a withdrawn
Yeah.
defense, where you don't attack, you don't defend, you just try and stay alive and utilize your one turning ability with your multiple rerolls. That's an issue to you.
Yeah, and I just don't like it as a form of play. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
but overall I don't mind it. I haven't seen many real issues when playing. It doesn't feel like it's ruined the game or anything like that at all.
I mean, we can just all
It's
agree to
fine.
point and laugh at those players until they stop. Maybe.
They'll never stop.
Yeah, I have a feeling with one or two you might be right.
You
Baza,
could
what do you
take
think?
that up to Loughborough.
Am I right?
Um,
Is multiple rerolls actually all right?
Yeah, it's different. That doesn't mean it's bad. Vampires are really the team that it's an issue with. But if you tone vampires down, then it's less of an issue.
Okay.
I have had fun with multiple reels per turn. I would have fun if we went back to one reel per turn. It changes the game. It changes what the right decisions are. But it's one of those where like if I started in this rule set, I wouldn't have ever thought it was an issue. The only reason people thought it was an issue was because it was new. So I'm perfectly fine with keeping it.
Elyod.
Yeah, I'm more or less ambivalent. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with either way. What I would say is that I like the idea of a more dynamic Blood Bowl and maybe more rerolls tied into that. Right, I like the idea of a Blood Bowl that has more ball sacks, right? More sort of ball plays where the ball moves about more, and this ties in a bit to, like making passing better as well, right? I'd almost prefer a Blood Bowl where like the turn 8 kind of grind kind of meta wasn't such a thing, but that's a really complicated sort of would be very difficult to affect the game like that. But more dynamic, I think, would be a good thing.
I mean, that is the dream, isn't it, Elyod? That no matter what you're doing or where you are, all you can see all around you is ball sacks.
Absolutely.
Now, I would love to end on that powerful ending. Words we can all smile at and agree. But I am going to say the usual thing I normally say is there anything I haven't asked you tonight I should have done? Anything we've not touched on that we should, other than, of course, each other's ball sacks? Colin, anything we haven't talked about that I really should?
No, I think we covered a lot. To be honest.
Have. I felt we were flagging about the 45 minutes, but we've pushed through to almost 2 hours. I'm very proud of us. Neil.
No, I think feel like we've covered a lot. Like it will be wait and see what happens next. Like if they bring out another new team, will it be something more reliable or will it be something completely that no one expected? They've definitely made it a bit more of an open field on that front. So yeah, be interesting to see what they do next.
There's no way of guessing.
Yeah, and the puns.
Just the first known pun we've had. That's not too bad, right?
You've
done well.
I've got one at university and the other one's just done D of E's 15, but I've still got a dad joke in me. Elyod, anything we haven't touched on we should have done?
I guess only one thing I don't think we mentioned. Cindy's a megastar now, apparently, which kind of brings in line with the bomber dribble snot. Which
I mean,
I
think she kind of was in most tournament organisers' heads.
Yeah.
And now she just officially is, which
stuff,
is where she belongs, isn't it? She's no real different to Bomber. It wasn't his special.
No.
It was his bombs. What was the problem? So yeah, she is. She can be completely bonkers. She can, on a key turn, she can double bomb you. No one likes being double teamed. Anyway, I think we've had enough of those pseudo-sexual references. We are going to wrap up. As you know, it makes it really easy to find in the edit if we all do a wonderful, joyful Teletubbies waving goodbye to all our lovely people in chat. Thank you for coming. We did try and grab as many points as we could, particularly those of you that were sensible about it. Lovely to have you here. Thank you very much. This will, of course, be on your YouTube, in which case, smash that like and subscribe, or just write a comment telling me I'm an arsehole. It actually doesn't matter. YouTube just loves it if you interact. So just interact in any way you want. If it's on Spotify or wherever else you listen to your podcasts, thank you for doing so. We'll be back, I hope, next week and the week after. I really want to crank them out and get busy with the fizzy now I'm back. So hopefully there'll be more of this content coming your way real soon. Say goodbye, everybody. That was One World, One Blood Bowl 46. Should I return? And if so, should it be to Fumble?
Back.
And that's us done. I will raid them off